Yo, B, let's go.
You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back to another episode of Rebel Wisdom. I'm Julien here with my co-host B. And today we're going to simply talk about quitting. Literally just the topic of quitting. And we're going to take some different angles on that. So I think most people would agree that quitting is associated with, negative behavior, a negative term. And most people urge you not to do it. And, I'm sure we've all heard at some point or another through family, friends, parent, podcast, speech, whatever, like never quit, don't quit, right? I think that's one of those sayings that's taken at face value. So as we like to do, I feel like we don't take anything at face value on this platform. So in true rebel fashion, we're going to dive into that and kind of see if we can dissect that a bit. Kind of just the topic of quitting. And I just came across the saying I've never heard that I think is very interesting. So I'm gonna insert it in very early in this conversation. And it's just that, when faced with the decision of quitting, it's a question I've been chewing on since I heard it today. And then as a listener, you can just kind of sit with, and it's, if you find yourself in the face of quitting, you could ask yourself, am I quitting because I'm failing, or am I failing because I refuse to quit? I found that very interesting. I'm going to circle back to that, but I want to kick it off with some personal anecdotes. So B, I got to ask you, bro, I feel like everybody's quit at some point. So can you tell me a time when you quit something and you either actually, tell me a time you quit something and you regretted it, or a time you didn't quit and you were like, maybe you should have quit.
Okay, I got two. One super quick.
Okay.
And second one's like the more meaningful one, I guess.
Okay, bet.
So the first one is super easy, where I played rugby for a few semesters in college, and before I quit because during a game I got stepped on and I fractured my rib.
Oh.
And I was in the NROTC program to join the Navy after high school or after college, and my commission where you go in as officer, that was like literally on the line because of this injury. And at that point, I was like, dude, like rugby is fun, but I'm just not in the position to risk my potential future career over it. So I quit, and I don't look back at all. And it sucked because it hurt. The fractured bone, that part hurt, but it eventually healed, and that was fine. And I had a good career in the Navy, and that I really enjoyed and value. So that's one. And the second part is during the Navy, I actually started a YouTube channel, and like it was literally like a hobby project. But actually I found success pretty quick. And like I got to 1,000 subscribers pretty quick, kept growing. I had I had like sponsors, I had ads, and I was making decent money for what I was doing. And when I got out of the Navy, it became a point where I don't know, I feel like my passion changed. So financially speaking, I feel like I would have been better off if I kept with the YouTube channel, but I just cold turkey quit. And I regret it in a sense because my wife was like, "Oh, like you should have kept doing it. Like you were so good." Like I literally had personal fans like reach out to me like, "Dude, like where are you? Like why did you quit?" Stuff like that. And that was like the meaningful part. But in hindsight, I mean, obviously there's gonna be a little bit of doubt in my head. I was like, "Hey, what if I kept continuing, right?" But overall, in hindsight, like I'm glad that I did quit because I don't think my heart was in it anymore. Like it became from a dream to a hobby to something that I just dreaded doing. And at that point, I just feel like it just doesn't make however much money you're making. Like I just felt like I was like sacrificing myself to chase the money, which I kept doing afterwards after I get the after I quit YouTube anyways, but that's just the YouTube part of it.
Thank you. I think I only have one, but those are good and kind of they were kind of different as well. And that's interesting. The we talked about on another podcast. I can't remember what the topic specifically was, but we talked about how, or no, it was I think the topic was like follow your passion or something. How if you try to monetize your passion, like sometimes that actually
Yeah.
extinguishes it, and it like the thing doesn't become fun anymore, and shouldn't monetize everything. But yeah, nonetheless, I appreciate you sharing that. So the one I'm gonna do is something that I quit that I regretted, and it was in college and I was studying. I had an elective class or something. I was taking Japanese, and I really liked it. I wouldn't say I was really good at it, but I was getting really good grades, like consistent. I think I got a B the first semester, or whatever, and then A's for like the rest of the time. Really liked it. And then there became a point, and I had a time in my schedule where I could minor in Japanese. And I was like, dude, I was just taking this because I needed an elective. I didn't want to do Spanish some. I wanted to do a unique language. I ended up learning about the culture and stuff. And like I grew fond of like Japanese culture and like learning it. But I was like, why would I take on extra course load to so the thing was I could have to minor in it. Like, why would I take on extra course load when I can just continue with my major? And like I just saw no point, even though I liked it. It wasn't super hard. I mean, at the levels I was studying it, like I remember if I took an extra semester, that would have been the difference of I would have had to start like writing prompts or like not stories, but like up until this point, I was just learning characters and like sentence structure, sounds. But then if I took another class pursuing the minor, I would have had to like start writing like paragraphs and stuff in Japanese, the easier alphabet, like hiragana or whatever. And I was like, that sounds like a lot. Like, oh, I'm not gonna do it. Fast forward a couple, I don't know, months, maybe a year. So I graduate and I'm in the military and I had no idea where I was going at the point which I was taking Japanese. So this is going to be completely ironic. But I end up getting stationed in Japan for 3 years. And I get to Japan, I know basic stuff to get by. And I was with B who speaks Japanese. So like he was a crutch. But like I just remember very early on, like imagine if I would have just stuck with Japanese, like I liked it, never was doing bad. I would have probably been not successful. Like I had a phenomenal time, but it would have just enhanced my experience so
Mhm.
much more. And I quit pretty much because like laziness, like I was just trying to take the easy route. Like I didn't need these extra courses. So I was like, "Ah, I'm not gonna do it." And I truly regretted it. So much so to the point today probably in like a year and a half from now, but I told myself my intention is to get on Duolingo and like learn Japanese because I probably forgot most of my foundation, but even still to this day, even though I'm probably never gonna live in Japan again, I'm gonna go back, right? I'm never gonna live there. I still want to learn Japanese. And I just reflect and I'm like, that was such a missed opportunity to just make myself more well-rounded, more worldly, and it would have directly correlated to where I lived for 3 years. So that's something I kind of beat myself up on. Uh, and again, when I look back at the reason why, it was pure laziness. Yeah, that's something I kind of kicked myself for.
The good
Oh,
thing is you can
but
always restart.
extending off of what exactly. Like no, for sure. And I want to learn that language. I don't know. I feel like learning a language is another, I should say, learning an additional language that's like not your native tongue is just, I mean, it's a challenge, but it's just like a good skill to have. Like it might be something you never use. But I don't know, something about that, just going through the challenge of learning it, especially not in an academic environment, like there's no pressure. Just kind of works muscles of your brain that you probably otherwise don't use. So
Mhm.
I think for those reasons, I'm gonna learn it. And like I said, I actually like Japanese and Japanese culture in Japan. So why not just continue on to something I already started. So yeah, that I think that's why I quit, and then also why I guess I'm gonna repick it back up. And stemming from that, even just hear myself speak out loud, talking about that why, like why I quit. And I think that for me, and you gotta tell me what you think about this, is kind of in this conversation what sticks out to me and what I want to analyze. Like, I can't say quitting is bad, but why you quit. Like I can't I wouldn't look at somebody and be like, no matter what, what situation and what you're going through, like, don't quit. I fundamentally disagree with that statement. I think once I know a person's why they want to quit, I think I could better understand, if I agreed with them quitting or not. Which goes back to that quote I said, like, am I quitting because I'm failing, or am I failing because I'm quitting? Like what's the why? And yeah, that's something I kind of want to. I'm looking forward to diving into in this conversation because I think my why, like just being lazy, was kind of bogus, to be honest.
You say you quit because laziness, but and then we can from that perspective, we can objectively say it was good or bad, and I'm leaning on bad. But it's hard because even if you say I was being lazy,
Right.
it's all subjective. Like the feeling itself is subjective to, I guess, like validate that reason. You know what I'm trying to get at? So it even if the reason sounds like it's not really good, it's hard to say whether that reason truly is good or bad. But I do think there are
Right.
very certain instances where quitting is good and quitting is not good. And
Right.
can I get into it real quick?
Yes, yeah, please. That's what I was gonna ask. Like, what defines that difference of when it's good and not good? Because it, like you just said, it can be subjective a lot of times,
Yeah.
or seem subjective.
So I don't want to like. It's hard for me to say. The first thing that comes up is like what I experienced through. Like I just wasn't feeling the passion. Right. So do I think that's a valid reason for me to quit? I think in my personal situation, it was. I mean, it's for a toss up. I could have kept going or not, but I don't think it was necessarily a wrong choice to quit. But I don't want to say the lack of passion as an umbrella is a good reason to quit. It just case dependent for that person, right? Because
Right.
if you're not feeling your job and you have no savings and a family to support, even if you're not feeling it, like I don't think you should quit at all. Like it sucks, but I feel like you should grind through it. Whereas, my situation, or it could be anyone else's, like it was just a hobby. There's not any negative like responses that's going to come out from me quitting my YouTube, except for the few hundred or like a $1,000 I could have got from YouTube, I guess. But it was very much hard work, active income. So that's kind of my starting thought. And number two and number three is probably the reason I was like, it's probably not a valid reason. And number two, I'm thinking about is ego. Is if people say, hey, don't quit, and you're going because you're embarrassed to quit, you are scared of what others might say because you quit, or things like that, that could be I don't think it's good for whatever you're doing as an activity or in this situation, like whatever you're trying to quit. I don't think it's good for that cause. And I don't think it's good for you, the person, to keep going to just to impress others or anything ego related. I'm like, dude, that's probably an easy, not a good thing to keep going. And the third thing that I'm thinking about, and I think this is really, really, really big, and that's why I kept it for the last one so I can keep talking about it, but is the idea of sunk
Mhm.
cost fallacy. And I talked about sunk cost fallacy in the last
Mhm.
episode too, but I think sunk cost fallacy, regardless of you recognizing that, hey, this is sunk cost fallacy, I don't think a lot of people like without knowing it. I think you're practicing it, and sunk cost fallacy basically states that it's the gambler's mindset usually. That's like another term that people use where let's say you go to the casino with $100 and obviously you want to win, but a lot of times that you don't. So let's say you go from $100 and you lost your first bet and you go to $50. Now the idea isn't necessarily about winning. The idea immediately goes in your head. I'm like, I just want to get back to my $100. Let me get back to my original capital
Yeah.
and get out. Right. And then so you like statistically speaking, regardless of what happened, you should have just quit. You shouldn't be gambling in the first place. But human psyche has more emotional impact from the loss than the gain itself. So
Mm-hmm.
once you have something invested, and then the more that you have invested, you want to keep chasing it.
The more you want to invest, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that has a lot to do with so many reasons why people think of quitting or not quitting. And it's the same thing for YouTube, same thing for rugby ultimately too, because I mean, rugby was fun, but it wasn't really my passion, right? I didn't really care if it disappeared tomorrow, personally. But I kept playing, one, for entertainment, and two, which I've never said out loud, but I know it's true deep down in my heart. I paid like a membership fee to play for the semester. And I think it was like $200 or something like that. Nothing crazy, but like when you're in college, like even a couple hundred bucks is
Heck yeah.
like, oh, that's a
Yeah,
big expense for me.
for
And
sure.
even on YouTube, like I bought the camera, I bought the equipment, I bought the mic, well, like all this stuff. Like I'm growing. I put so many hours into it. If I quit, then it's gonna be for nothing. And that's the part that I don't like. It shouldn't be based on how much effort you put in. Like that shouldn't be part of the equation. It should be for other reasons.
Okay. Yes. I'm anchoring on that last part. It shouldn't be about the effort you're putting in. I don't think this is what you're saying, but I'm gonna contrast it with some examples or stories like, and this is where it gets hard. You already stated is these type of situations are very much independent of kind of that person and what's going on, or what they're feeling. But you have the no, I see. I guess these are fundamentally different. I'm literally thinking as I'm talking. So you just have the stories where people did something so persistently or for so long, and they almost like willed it to work, which is easy to say when they're on the other side of success. Like there's probably the equal amounts of people that have done similar things for just as long or just as hard, and it just never works out. But again, we publicize these success stories, so I'm thinking of like the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling's, right, who she wrote, I guess, the book and like floated it around in like 10 different publishers and kept getting denied
Mhm.
until somebody finally gave her a chance and published it. And I would challenge you to find somebody today who doesn't know what or who Harry Potter is. It's like everywhere, probably a multi-million dollar franchise or whatever. They have like sections of theme parks, books, movies, etc. Right. And then another example just popped in my head, like Michael Jordan got cut from, it was like his high school team, like junior year or something in high school, or maybe it was like sophomore year in college. But at some point in his formative years, right, like Michael Jordan got cut. Similar story. Find me somebody who doesn't know who Michael Jordan is. A basketball legend, regarded as one of the GOATs. So, and it's like these are people just now, granted, in their stories, I'm sure there was like a passion element where, again, it goes to maybe their why. Like, why are they doing this? Maybe they're not doing it for fame or money. Their heart's truly in it. Like J.K. Rowling's wanted her fictional story to be told. Michael Jordan was a hooper, just like through and through in his heart, and like that's what he wanted to do. So when you say like, I forget what your exact words were, but like regarding the work, like sometimes in certain situations you will just like good old fashioned hard work and persistence may be needed. Now, that may not be the only thing, but like that is a element or maybe like the key element sometimes. You just gotta like weather the storm and see it through. But again, even that saying, right, like just weather the storm or see it through, that's not, I feel like it's often given as blind guidance and not, it's not tailored in any way. And that's where I think the quitting part can be certainly be debated.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's so nuanced, and I'm trying to be careful with what I'm trying to say because there's so many
Right.
situations where quitting would not be the right choice, but at the same time, I feel like there's even more scenarios where quitting could be the right choice for that person. And at least for the two examples that you brought up, I
Yeah.
I do think it's based on survivorship bias. I mean,
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
believe, and so if J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter, she could be one author that really made it. She was talented, passionate, never quit, worked out for her. But I feel like there's, I don't know, given one of her, there's at least 100 other authors that came up with,
Exactly,
just as
exactly.
maybe just as good of a story as Harry Potter, but it just
We'll never
didn't
hear it.
work out the way that it did. And now we'll never ever hear about that person. I feel like, you go to like a college graduation speech, you're like, never quit, keep going. Like you're going to be, you are just ready for the world. Like
Right, right.
those things are always, always, always told from someone on the winning side. And I'm sure they never quit. I'm sure they had the perseverance. I'm sure they had the dedication and hard work and everything. And because of that, they got to the place that they're in a place that they're giving you a speech, right? But you are not them. You can have everything that you can possibly, within the hard work, you can match exactly what they do.
Mhm.
But there could be instance where you got 1 hour less sleep on a random Tuesday, which you had a really important meeting that could have changed the trajectory of your startup, and that you like something bad happened in the meeting because you got a little bit of less sleep and you never hear about that company, right? So it's I just want to say it's good. It's good to say good in a sense that like it feels good to say don't quit, but for majority of the people, I would take a careful look at something. They're like, is it beneficial for me to quit? Uh, It and one more to that.
No.
Like if it's just passion, if it's just passion and you don't need to rely on that thing for to live. Yeah, I don't really care if you quit or don't quit. I would encourage you not to quit, right? That's your passion, that's your hobby. Like keep going at it. But I kind of want to tailor this conversation more in like the professional sense that I see a lot of people doing like people that's stuck in their career. Like there could be a lot of sunk cost fallacy in that. Like if you're, let's just say, if you're a accountant and you hate it, you hate being an accountant. Like you just chose the wrong major, chose the wrong field, but you've been doing it for the last 10 years, and you're gonna be like, well, I did it for 10 years. I'm gonna be throwing away all my skills and everything that I built up to this point to switch careers. But dude, like if you hate what you do, I think it does make sense to make like a lateral move if you can. And with that being said, there's nuance in that particular scenario. Like I hope you have an emergency fund so you can weather the storm for things like this happening. I hope that you can I hope you can find a job first, the new job first before you quit the current one. So there's a seamless transition in terms of finances and things like that, right? But my overall point stands where I see too many people like being stuck into something and they regret it, but then like a little inside of their brains, someone's like this little angel or devil, I don't even know, like they're telling you, hey, don't quit, like let's keep going. And that's just the part that I don't necessarily agree with.
Okay. Oof. I got some good stuff from listening to you say that. I had to jot some stuff down because I was having so many thoughts. So, um, rebuttaling what I said about the J.K. Rowlands and the Michael Jordan, like you said, there's hundreds of other people doing similar things that we'll never hear about. And that is that survivorship bias being that they made it, so like we hear about it, and that story gets amplified. And people that are in those their shoes that have been grinding for a year, 2 years, 3 years, in whatever field, whatever passion it is. And this is not to deter anybody, but going towards that sunk cost fallacy, it's like, how do you, and I don't think you can, but I'm gonna pose a question. How do you quantify when you're now getting diminishing returns, right? Like you might be working well, I will use the writing a book um scenario, right? Like you wake up tomorrow, you have an idea, I want to write a book. So you start writing a book for a year. Cool. Writing a book's a long process. So you write it, you keep writing to year two. You're getting new ideas. You're talking to people. You're networking. For you're still exciting. Cool. You write a book. 2 years go by. Okay, you're ready to publish. 2.5 years. Right. Try to publish. Maybe not getting anything. Nobody's catching. Nobody will publish. Trying to get somebody to edit. Maybe no edit. Okay. Now it's like 3.5 years and you're still trying to float the idea around, but now it's like not seeming fun, or you're like, maybe I need to tweak it. So you like go right, you rewrite some stuff. Maybe you're staying up late. Now you're getting less sleep. Now you're feeling bad about this book. It's 4 or 5 years past. Like now maybe you obsess over it. Like it's affecting your friendships. You know what I mean? And you're like, you know what? I put 5 years into this. I have to keep going. But at some point, and again, I don't know how you quantify this. It has to be a decision that the individual just comes to, but like there are diminishing returns, and like your effort going into this thing could be affecting you negatively. And you said, like, we just have to check ourselves on that fallacy of, hey, is this working or not? And this is the part of the conversation where I want to, we've been talking about quitting pretty black and white, like quitting, stopping it, or don't quit, just keep doing the thing. But is there a middle ground where it's like,
Mm,
hey, you're not completely stopping the thing, but like let's kind of change paths a little bit? Like this is where I think the key is going to be that in the pivot. That's not a complete quit, but maybe rebranding or stopping for a while to get a fresh perspective on it, or you know what I mean? Just maybe your end goal is kind of the same, but how you go about it's totally different. Or maybe you are keeping your process kind of similar, but like you're shifting what the end state looks like, or what the goal is. And that's when we're mentioning quit, I think we're talking about the traditional just blind quitting, like keep doing the thing you were doing. Just if you do it long enough and hard enough, you'll find success, whatever. And that's like the quitting that I would like heavily
mm.
think about or like go against. But I do think there's a gray area in that you can not totally quit in a lot of cases, right? Like sometimes you just need to cut it cold and like just do something else. But I think a pivot can be very useful in this situation. And also listening to you speak, B, I was thinking like I think the don't quit hits better as a mindset and not a physical act. And I'm gonna explain that.
Mm,
Like if you have the mindset like, hey, I'm going through a tough time, like we'll take the work right now. I'm going through a tough time, but like I know I can see this through. Or maybe if I relocate in the building, or maybe if I try to get a fresh perspective, like you have the mindset not to quit, and you change things to make your situation better. I think that's good, instead of the act. And maybe you change some things because you're trying not to quit, therefore you make changes, but then the changes don't work, so you still quit. Vice the actual act of not quitting and be like, hey, I just need to stick this out and like not give up. So I think the not quitting mindset is good, even though it might result in quitting. That might be like a super oxymoron. I don't know. But like if you're somebody and you're just taking don't quit for face value, like, hey, I just got to keep going and like and never stop, then I think that can be problematic because you might be missing the fresh perspective, or you might be missing the pivot, or you might be missing a new opportunity, honestly. Like there could be something else knocking at your door that's completely different that you're blind to because you're just pouring in this thing. And yeah, you're sinking in cost and your returns are diminishing. And what are you losing because you're not quitting? So those are some things I was thinking about that I
yeah,
want to
no,
hear
it
what you
does.
think of.
I do think there is oftentimes, not in every scenario, where you can go to the middle ground. And I'm thinking from multiple different angles, right? Like from like a YouTube perspective, like instead of quitting, maybe I could have just toned back my release schedule from 3 times a week
Mm,
to once a week to see how that would change my
right?
mindset. If you're an accountant, like I was talking about earlier, maybe you do a career shift, right? But then at the same time, you could still like have a side hustle where you're like bookkeeping for someone else. Like you're still in that field, but
Mhm.
like because you already have that skill, right? But then you can try to
Right.
pivot, things like that. And I I think I have a really good example from not from my personal experience, but I listened to Ryan Pineda's podcast. His podcast is The Wealthy Way, And he talks about this very often, where he was the type, and you can imagine that someone that you went to high school with, like he was from elementary school a baseball stud. Like he was the shortstop batting fourth on every single team that he ever played. And from elementary school, middle school, high school, and then he was, nationally ranked player in high school. And then he goes to I forgot which school he went to, but he went to a prestigious like baseball college. And so he does pretty well there. I think he was like the freshman of the year in the entire conference and things like that. And I don't remember his exact career path, but he doesn't make it to the majors, right? He doesn't even make it to the triple A. I think he was like single A or double A equivalent, where you do legitimately have a shot to make it into the pros. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah.
pros, but like making it to the big leagues, they have a good chance. But majority of them like just kind of don't, right? It just numbers, because at the
Yeah.
majors you're not only competing from people from AAA, you are competing from around the world in every pro league. The best of the best come to the MLB, right? So long story short, like he keeps chasing it, keeps chasing it, and one day he gets cut from the team. Right? He doesn't even drop a league; he just gets cut. And then, he like I think he's like 24 at this point, and you got to realize from his perspective, he has never had. I don't want to say a real job. Like I don't know what
Yeah.
real jobs are, but like you know what I mean. Like he's never worked in like a corporate setting or anything like that. He's
Ooh, that was me.
only
Okay.
thing he knew his entire life was baseball. And at 24, they're like, "All right, you're done." What do you do, right? Because
Right.
he did have an option. It was like he could have never quit, because he could have went to another like less prestigious league, as I call summer ball. Or, I don't remember exactly, but he could have kept playing. And he was like, I was thinking about playing for a little bit. And then, but he did it, right? And then he went from, I think, like substitute teacher to flipping couches to flipping houses to wholesaling. And now he has like 7 or 8 figure businesses, right? So based on that, obviously
Crazy.
he's also an example of survivorship bias. But with his
Yep.
example, it would have been much, much, much more valuable to quit. And he was really passionate about baseball. I feel like
Yeah.
the lesson from his story is pretty, I would say, opportunity cost, right?
Mhm.
I feel like you could be really good. I don't know. Let's just say, what's a like an important skill, but just you can't monetize it that much.
Oh,
Like
I was
it's
gonna
not
say, once you say
lucrative.
camp,
Let's just say, like,
playing
what
an
if?
instrument maybe? Like if you're a
Okay, yeah,
sick harp player, I don't know,
let's say you're like the 10th best harp player in the world. Like you
Yeah.
got to be super duper talented. But how much are you making? I'm sure if you're number 10 in the
Yeah.
world, like you'll be professional at it
You
at
find
that
something.
level.
Right, right, yeah.
But are you just bouncing around couches from buddy's house to another buddy's house because you barely get paid anything? Is that the life you want to live? And if the answer, and that wasn't a rhetorical question, right? Like if the answer is legitimately yes, I do not care about money. I don't care where I sleep or where I eat or what I eat or anything. I just want to keep playing harp. Okay, then I don't ever quit.
Oh,
That's your scenario. But
yeah.
majority of the time is like, why can't you just like, do you just love playing harp? Then can't you just play harp on like your personal time, your off time? Like make it a hobby. Like you can get into
Right.
teaching while you're having a more of a lucrative job. And I don't know, it may be, I don't, you can get into, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do lucratively in the music space as a whole, right? And it doesn't even have to be in the music space. You can literally pick up another skill and monetize that. But yeah, those are the situations like it's gonna be probably the biggest challenge is like recognizing yourself in that situation, right? Like
Yeah.
it comes back to the statement that you made. It was like, am
Mhm.
I failing because I suck, or am I failing because I'm just never quitting?
Yeah. No, dude, exactly. And I think there's this, I don't know if it would be a paradox, but like it's like to get really good, right? You have to do most times or for a specific skill, harp or like coding, or there's some you may not be able to monetize, or you can monetize really easy, coding or whatever, right? Oftentimes you have to do it a lot. Like you have to do it a long time to get really good at something. But then again, it's like the longer you do it, is it is that either making you not want to do it as much, or or the opportunity cost, like what are you giving up to do that thing? And I forget what, but some studies showed that like 85% of people worldwide are it says disengaged at work, suggesting like, it's unfulfilling or they don't want to be there. But it's like 85%, that's a high number. And I don't know when this was done, but the natural question is, okay, why don't you quit? And you gave an example earlier was like, if your needs aren't met, you can't quit. That's not what we're talking about. That's not the question. Like you gotta work to live in modern society. We got that. But it's like on one hand, you have to do something a long time to get really good at it, and on another hand, sometimes if you do it a long time, it's like, again, I don't know how to quantify it, but you need to pivot or to quit. So it's kind of a paradox, but it's like only you can really, again, and which is why I say it comes down to the why. I think helps answer that question, or I guess the goal, which is kind of the same thing as the why. Like,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like if you're trying to get to a specific end state, or there's some other very like tangible reason you're I don't know, you're doing it, deep intrinsic like reason you're doing it. But yeah, I think it's funny. It comes down, there needs to be some type of like internal conversation. And this is what I also think is interesting. If if the idea of not to quit, right, was fundamentally bad, we wouldn't teach like kids and stuff, right? Because I would, and this is incredibly ironic. Literally, I kid you not, yesterday I was having conversations with a girl that I work with. She's gonna have a baby, and she was a former athlete, like college and high school. Her husband, same. And they were like, yeah, we want to put our kids in sports. Like, we think sports teaches you a lot of things. We think it's a positive outlet, which all of which I agree with. And she was like, but whatever they do, like when they started for a season, they can't quit that season. Like, we're not gonna force them to do it forever, or even if they're good at it. They're like, even if they're good at it and they don't like it, we're gonna let them stop. But they can't quit. Like once they start, they can't quit for that season, right? I agree with that logic. I mean, I'm not a parent, but that sounds like sound reasoning. I like what that instills. But are we not? Is that not like a mini example or a microcosm of like when you start something, finish it? Like why are we teaching kids that if not? And this goes back to the root of it. I think it's trying to instill the mindset of
Mhm.
of I don't know, maybe giving it your all, or being persistent, not just stopping at the first, like, oh, I don't feel good about this, or oh, I don't like it, or oh, I'm not good at it. But again, as an adult, and once you form this conversation, take this conversation a little further, you can realize there are absolutely times when you should quit and or pivot. But as a mindset, I think not quitting is good. Which is literally why we teach kids. And we kind of leave it on them to develop that as they get older. But I will probably tell my kid, I know I'm gonna use the phrase at some point, like, "Don't quit." I know I am. Now, what I'll try to do better with, like, framing it and, like, you know, "Don't quit unless blah, 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 blah," or "Don't quit if add maybe something to it to make it not just a blanket statement that we all take for face value, but, like, I want to instill in my kid not to quit, but that's gonna develop as they age. I thought that was
Ye
so funny how I just had that conversation.
Dude, the kid thing is hard, dude, and I think
Right?
that's a good, like, a little mental puzzle,
Mhm.
because you're right, I agree, like, if when telling kids, but it is interesting, I think the kid conversation is interesting because I wouldn't tell you, like, let's say, I mean, you're obviously not my kid, but I wouldn't tell you, you can be anything you want in the world. Like, I just
Right.
think that's
Right.
unrealistic. But if I was telling my kid, I might say those exact phrase
Yeah, right.
or something, some
Something
version of
very
that.
sim
But
Yeah,
so it's not necessarily, and I agree with you. I'm just trying to think out loud too. It's not necessarily the
right.
underlying phrase that you're trying to teach. It's something deeper that you're trying to instill in them as a
Exactly.
mindset, which you kind of mentioned. And I think that's good. And thinking about, I think when you kind of frame topics like that, it's like, hey, would I tell my kid that or not? Something that we're saying not to do.
Yeah.
It is very ironic, but it is a good mental challenge to, I feel like it forces you to peel back the onion if you want to. You're like, why would I not tell my buddy this, but I would tell my kid this? Because I care about I would care about my kid more. I get that, but like I still care about my buddies, right? So yeah, it's gonna
Dude,
be a new
as
way to
I'm
think for
saying it,
me.
yeah, I'm honestly, stuff's unfolding in my head now too. Think about there's so many things we tell our kids that which is this is a full circle moment. The whole reason why we're rebelling it because and I think we tell our kids this because they're not old enough to digest the deeper topic. So the surface level, we want to get that seed in their head. So because again, it's like a mindset. So they can at least have a good mindset. Because right, all these things are good at face value, but as you get older, you just can't leave it there. Like there needs to be growth in these ideas. And I'm just gonna start throwing out stuff, right? Like you might tell a kid, hey, save all your money. Would not tell you to save all your money. Uh always don't quit. Like if you like you said, you can be anything you want. Like these are all like all you got to do is work hard. Sometimes you need to work smarter. Sometimes you need to quit. Sometimes you need to not save as much and invest some. But you know they can't conceptualize that. So it's like we create these baby phrases just to like feed them while they're young to kind of like get it started. And I'm just not realizing that. That's why like all these phrases we don't agree with somewhere over time, like they're good I guess for the young, but they're only good if they get expanded on as you grow. Like if
Yes.
you plant that seed and that seed is never watered and it never grows and it stays that seed, and now you're 40, like never quit or oh, if I don't spend it, like I'm just gonna save it. Like that's when I think I can't even say diminishing returns, but that's when I think these things can be harmful when they're not expanded on. And I literally think I just had that realization in this conversation. We've talked
Yeah.
about so many of these phrases, that we disagree with. That's like the premise of this platform. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Damn.
But I got
Uh,
more. I was just kind of thinking through as we were talking too, and there's a couple of things that come up in my mind back to the don't quit thing.
yeah,
And first, I have two that I thought of, and the first one's quick again. So let me go through with that first.
yeah,
But there was this concept, or so I'm a big reader. I read a lot of books,
yeah, yeah.
and there, I don't, isn't it ironic? Like, this is kind of off topic, but I can throw away anything in my house for majority of the things that doesn't have sentimental value from like from my parents or like from a dead family member that I will never get to see. I'm not talking about things like that, but like
Yeah.
with books, even if it doesn't have any sentimental value, I feel like guilty about it throwing it away. Does it? You know what I mean? It's like I feel it's like
Yeah.
instilled in me. It's wrong to throw away books, and I don't know if it's similar, but in similar lines of thinking, whenever I start reading a book, I hate to not finish a book. It's like it bothers me not to finish a book,
Dude.
and
Oh my God.
it's
Same.
extremely harmful. And the harmful skill isn't too bad. I'm talking about books here, right? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
harmful because if I pick up a book and I don't like,
Oh.
I get to like chapter 5, I'm like 50 pages in, let's say, out of 500, and you're just like, bruh, like I don't. This is not the book. Sometimes I feel like when you're reading a book, you're like it's like speaking to you. Other times it's like I think I'll get more value as like when if I read this at a different point in my life.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
for sure.
very hard. I have been good about it recently because I just buy a lot of books that I'm just interested in. So there's a lot in my bookshelf that I haven't read yet. So I'll
Mhm.
pick up something like this most recent work trip I went to Texas and I brought a book with me. I read chapter 1 on the plane. I was like, dude, this is not what I was
Was it?
exactly expecting. Um, and I think it's valuable information. It's just not valuable information to me right now. So
That's
I was
fair.
like, you know what? I'm just not going to read it and read something else. And that was like a hard thing to overcome. And that's like a everyday thing that I could try to relate to on a different scale. Cause we're talking about like Michael Jordan and Harry Potter, like big stuff, right? So this is like more on a everyday level that hopefully you can tailor that to your own situation, whatever that may be. And the second thing I want to talk about is in this topic, I think we can learn a lot from entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
people. So I'm trying to think the big names, like big entrepreneurs, but like they, I don't know too much of everyone's backstory. So maybe I can't think of a name, but usually under the ultra rich, like the typical rich people, let's say the millionaires and above, that's entrepreneurs, they usually started multiple companies, or we can say ventures or whatever it may be, and they fail at it. They fail at it, but they learn and they quit and they move on. So it's it's interesting because I don't think the quitting is the word quit, or the verb of quitting is used in like a different scenario here, where if you're an entrepreneur, you're not quitting to be an entrepreneur. You're just quitting that particular business that you have currently,
Mhm.
right? To move on to the next and learn something greater, because you just need one business to succeed as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I'm trying to relate that to a typical W-2 job where I don't know, like I'm an engineer right now, but if I am, don't get me wrong, I do like what I do, enjoy what I do, but let's say I didn't, but I like my overall company. Like I'm very
Mm.
happy with them. I love the industry that I'm in. So if I were to quit, I don't necessarily have to quit the job, right? I could ask for like an
Right.
internal transfer. I could
Yeah.
try to go to the management side. Maybe being a manager is a little bit better, like more rewarding than I thought.
Mhm.
You could go into, by having a lot of knowledge inside a particular industry, like you can oftentimes go do other stuff inside that industry. So that was kind of what I was thinking about, and just trying to correlate it, or just trying to relate it to average people that everyone can hopefully relate it to.
No, dude, that's good. That's good stuff. I'm still stuck on the with the book thing is so crazy because I'm the same way. I don't know why I get so attached to feeling like I can't put a book down if I start it. And I literally want to ask you, like, why do you think that is? I'm asking myself as I ask you. I mean, sure, I was raised to like not quit, but again, I know now it's okay. It's almost better sometimes to just if it's not for us. And I'm trying to think why that is. And yeah, I don't have a good answer. And then sometimes too, like failing or if you kind of just spoke on a pivot, if you didn't like some of your job, maybe you could do a lateral transfer or something. I think sometimes this goes against the quote I originally said. If you're failing because you're not quitting, or if you quit to fail, or if you quit because you're failing. But I think sometimes it's good to see failure through, or like I don't know, maybe I'm suggesting that there's a time element to it. Like if you start something in month 3, you're failing. It's like, oh well, it's time to do something new. I mean, 3 months is a relatively short time. I'm thinking of the Einstein quote, who he was like, what do you say? Something like, it took him over 100 times till he created the light bulb. And he was just failing, failing, failing. He was like, I didn't fail 100 times. I learned 100 ways how not to make the light bulb. And I was like, dang, that's a super positive spin on just continuing to not get it right. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So again, this is paradox of like, to some extent, not quit, but also evaluate when it might be time to move on. I don't know. I just keep going back to the back and forth, but yeah, I don't. You also said a lot to be learned from entrepreneurs, and I think that kind of speaks to that the Einstein thing, or just the how significant it is to pivot and learn to take away. I mean, all that time you are putting in something, like there has to be some takeaway from it. Like if you're learning something, like what are the lessons learned? What am I getting from it? So you can adequately make that pivot to something and make it worthwhile. Like I wouldn't just blindly jump into something else. And you talked earlier about like leveraging your skills. If you're doing something for a while, you don't have to quit. You can take those skills and apply them somewhere else. Or even just do it for a side hustle or a side gig. Like you said, it doesn't have to be the main thing either, which we talked about in our episode where we talked about like having passions. Like people say like try to monetize your passion. Like if you're passionate enough about it, like you can make money from it. Not also not always true. Um, but like why can't you do these things on the side? I don't know. It's a whole nother question. But
What do you think of the idea of setting a time frame into something if you're having doubts?
okay, so like say I'm doing something for a year and I'm having doubts and be like, all right, I'm gonna give it another year, and then after another year, maybe reevaluate, like something like
Yeah,
that. I don't think that's a bad thing. Especially if you've self-identified that like I'm struggling with knowing when to stop or not, then I think it's even better because
yeah.
now you're giving yourself a hard deadline on paper. Yeah, because
Because I
and
thought,
again, it's if you do that too early, it could you might just need to like pour into it for a certain time. So like most things just flat out take time, right? Like to get some results or and the more we advance in society, the age we live in now, there's that element of like I need it now. And I find myself all the time, like I'll get on my phone and I'm like, do I should be able to go on this site and click and have it or order it or this skill I should learn, like get ChatGPT, like why am I not getting a quick answer? Like some stuff just needs a little time. But nonetheless, I do think if you've put a little time in already, setting a go like a end time is it can just force like some refreshness, like a refreshing take, a pivot, just give up or take you to force you to step back. I think it's good.
I was kind of thinking about it for, I don't know why, but like traders came up into my head, like day
Mm,
traders,
mhm.
because they say 98% of day traders fail, right? And then
Right.
for the fail people that fail, that's, I don't think it's like a necessarily a bad thing. You know, you wanted to try something, you put some money into
Yeah.
it, didn't work, you failed, therefore you
Hopefully you learn
quit
something.
and you moved on, right? That's I don't even think that's a bad scenario. That the part that I'm having a hard time trying to make it black and white rather than gray is the line to draw about. What am I trying to say? You know, so it's at 2% of, so if 98% fail, like 2% becomes
Mhm.
successful, right? So
Right.
like
Right.
they're like full-time
Yep.
day traders, right? And depending on how well they do, they could be making millions, or if you're not good but you're still doing okay, like you might, have a decent salary, or not salary but
Mhm.
profits, right? And the idea comes in to my mind from Max um, Gladwell, or Malcolm Gladwell, where
Mhm.
he said it takes 10,000 hours to master something.
Yeah.
So
That's what I'm talking about.
if you're a trader and you're not doing well, do you try to continue to go to that $10,000? But it's actually kind of hard because trading takes capital most of the time.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
even after 10 hours, are you that person that just could not get it? It just, some people just are not meant for it. But then now you sunk 200K and 10,000 hours
Yeah.
into something. So, like, with that, and if you didn't like it in the first place, you're like, oh, I literally should have quit 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part about telling people it's okay to quit or it's not okay to quit. And
Dude, I feel like this is a walking paradox. Like it's both sides. I feel like most things we talk about, there's a little, or at least for us, in our opinions, there's a little more like you can kind of lean a little, like we take a stance and we have some pretty strong stances on some things, but this one's like very much both sides could come into play, and it's honestly more nuanced. I think more nuanced. I think than a lot of things, and I'm trying to think to myself when it gets so like wishy washy or nuanced. What is a solid middle ground to like? What's a statement that holds true in all environments, whether you're about to quit or you're pointing to it and not quitting? And I think that might be um to reevaluate or even iterate, like have iterations of things, which I also think can go back to the entrepreneur thing you said. But w- if you so I'm gonna modify what you said and like put an end goal on something like by this time I'm going to, if I don't have it or haven't reached success or I don't, whatever the end goal is, if you haven't done it by then, you're gonna stop. If you walk that back a little bit and say it's probably something I could probably benefit from. Um, have periods of evaluation. Like I'm working towards X goal, and quarterly I'm gonna if you can put a metric to it, even better, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna see where I'm at. I'm gonna see how do I feel about going towards this goal. Do my numbers align? Am I getting better at this thing? Did I get more qualified in this area? And then I think that if the answer is yes, you have something tangible that could be like, okay, I can justify continuing to do it. Or maybe if you don't for like 3 quarters in a row, it's like, hey, I'm not I'm evaluating myself and I'm not meeting this marks. To your point, like maybe, okay, if I don't get it by this time, then I stop. But you know what I mean? At least you have some type of benchmark. But I think a key in not quitting is some element of evaluation, maybe. And again, I'm really just coming up with all this as we go. I don't know. This is a lot of stuff I'm gonna need to reflect on personally in my own life.
Yeah.
I think this is good stuff, and this is why I love doing it. You know what I mean? But it's like, dang, because there's so many situations where you should quit, and there's so many times where you shouldn't quit. But like, I mean, we don't have the answers. We can't see the future. So yeah, I'm just trying to think like what is the truly the best way and that fits most cases to go about it. And I think it's some level of just I'm doing like a self check-in
Yeah,
evaluation.
every so often, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Something.
Dude, I I'm kind of mad at myself that we didn't talk about this earlier, but like what you said reminded me, and it's like a very important topic, I feel like. But you said somewhere along the way, evaluation and adaptation. Like you need to be able to be flexible and adapt where needed, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
I think I don't have the overarching, fundamentals on if it's this scenario, quit. If it's this, don't quit, right?
Yeah. Right.
But
Exactly.
I feel like confidently say that if you're doing the same thing over and over and over and it's not working, quit. It's okay. Like just go ahead and quit or
Definition of
or you
insanity.
might have to adapt, right? Cuz that's the definition of insanity. Like doing the same thing over and over without expecting different results. That's most of the time it's not going to happen. So, I think that adaptation is key and being able to optimize things, like for example, the YouTube channel, right? Like if something wasn't working, like I either do it because I'm just not going to change who I am or my values, or oftentimes it wasn't necessarily correlated with any of my values. So I'm like, okay, why was I doing this for? Doesn't make sense.
Actually.
Like for example, like it's so small, but I'm sure everyone can relate. Like when you're like a brand new YouTuber, they tell you to put in like an intro. Like I don't know what it is. It's like you need to have like an intro for your video, whatever. But it's funny because some like if you look at big YouTubers, like a lot of them they don't have intros. And a lot of like the mid-tier YouTubers, yeah, they might have intros, but like at that point because you're kind of into their ecosystem, that you're like, oh, that's the intro. Like you immediately recognize who the video I'm watching, or just like a catchy thing. Uh, but if you're like a brand new YouTuber, like putting in the intro is more of like a harmful barrier to your audience. Does that make sense? Like,
Mm.
why? Like, dude, this is the first video. If your intro 30 seconds long, I'm gonna click out of
Yeah,
it
you're gonna lose it.
second 20, no,
Yep.
20 seconds in. I'll never get to. I'm like, dude, what the heck? I just
Never see the
literally
content.
right. So I think the adaptation thing is big and trying to see without changing your value where you can improve. And you can do that a lot of times with data and like there's just so much knowledge out there like in majority of the things they're going to do today.
Facts. And I feel like you just described that evaluation, like you're saying, see if my values align, see what I could do better. Like that is literally self-evaluating and then making adjustments. Again, to not do the same thing over and over and expect
Mm.
different results. Dude, yeah, that's perfect. I actually think that kind of solidified the point I was trying to make.
All right, so we cut the mic in the video for a little bit, and Julie and I were talking about like what's the actual like best way to put like a framework into whether to continue or quit. And obviously, like we're not the all knowing, so this is not a perfect list, but I think this is somewhat close to where it's like basic, logical enough that everyone can follow pretty much. So if you're in a situation where if it's I'll say professional work, right? The professional work that has consequences of continuing or quitting, and then that kind of negates the hobby side of things. Like if there's no consequences of quitting, like just keep doing it. Doesn't really matter. But for the professional side, the first question I would ask is, are you still passionate? And then, obviously, if you're not passionate, like it's already like a red flag. You really have to determine the scenario that you're in to see if you need to continue or not continue. And sometimes you cannot quit. Like you just have to keep going, regardless of whether you're passionate or not. And the second thing is, are there measurable signs of progress? And I think this is important too, because we just wrapped up saying, don't do the same thing over and over. But if you keep doing the same things over and over, but you're seeing signs of progress, like I would say, okay, maybe it's okay to keep doing what you're doing. It's it's I forgot it's like the picture where there's like a big pot of treasure in the bottom of the ground,
I
and then you
knew-
have like a digger person. There might be two of them, and one of them, they're not gonna never hit it, but then one of them's like so close to the big treasure, but like you never get there, right? So if there's measurable signs of progress, like for the example of digging, if you keep going further down and further down, and there's evidence that there's big treasure at the end, like it might be worth to just keep sticking to it until. And I think that's where the timeline that we talked about earlier comes in. Like, hey, I'm gonna keep going for 2 more years. I'm gonna keep doing this and then if it doesn't get to that point, I'm gonna quit, and it's okay. And the third thing is, are the returns worth the time and the emotional energy? And that's where I believe for me, what that I kind of got stuck on. Like first for the YouTube thing, like I really wasn't passionate, but then I could have definitely kept going. It was interesting me enough that I could have kept going, but the returns worth the time and personal emotional energy. Like I would be putting in, like I was making 3 videos a week of about 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes a piece. And that would take me a 10-minute video would probably take me about 4 to 5 hours from start to finish. Like literally from coming up with the information, the script, recording, editing everything, uploading, and so on, right? And so if you do that for, let's say, 5 hours, 5 hours times 3, that's 15, and um, times 4 in a month, that's what, 60? I was putting in 60 hours for, I mean, let's just say at first I was making like $100 a month. and later on I was making a little bit more, but like based on that calculation, like even though I'll be growing, but you're literally working for like a couple bucks an hour. And at some
Yeah.
point you're just like, dude, like it was a dream, it was a passion, but it just doesn't support my lifestyle. And I quit. And I have some doubts, but I think overall it was good to quit. Fourth thing is, are you learning and growing or just repeating the same mistakes? And this is the part that Julian was talking about with the adaptation. But oftentimes when you fail at something, you typically learn a lesson. And maybe not the first time. So maybe you have to fail 3 times for you to understand, like this is like a recurring message in my failures. But then if you're getting that, you might not be getting the returns in terms of financially back to you immediately. But if you keep learning, like you grow as a person. And I guess you could put a price on that, but the price would be pretty high for me, which means I just value, personal learning and personal growth. And if you're getting that, I could see benefits into keep continuing with whatever you're doing. Like for example, that might be like working out at the gym. I think that's like a really easy example. I It's a bad example in a sense that I haven't been going to the gym recently, but there were a period of time where I would be going to the gym like 5-6 times a week for like years straight, right? But at the time, like I was never passionate about going to the gym. I was never like, let's go. I finally get to go to the gym. I was never like that. And it helped because by doing more weight, I knew that I was growing.
Yeah.
I knew. And then what I was growing into, let's say for this example, is like better cardio health or better health in general, more muscles. Like these were all good things that aligned with my value. So I didn't really care for it, but I was growing. I was learning like better techniques and things like that. I, and aligned with my personal growth. Even if you don't like it, it might be valuable to keep going. And yeah, that's all of it.
That's it. Yeah. So I think that's awesome, dude. I'm laughing at the digging example, like close to the goal, because early in this episode, I was thinking that like I've seen that so many times on like social media or whatever,
Yeah.
and I almost brought that up too, and I just thought that was hilarious how you used that. But nonetheless, those I don't even know 5 or 6 things you named are again not an exhaustive list, not it's just some kind of things we threw out, but certainly can help frame your mind if the question is, should I quit or not? So, thank you for summarizing those, being throwing those out there. Uh, Dude, that's good. I got some major takeaways for this, like whether to just thought provoking or like, hey, maybe I need to reevaluate this in my own life. So I appreciate you, bro, for hopping on the mic with me as always. You got anything else to wrap up?
I'm good.
That's good. I think ending with that framework is perfect. Got some good takeaways. And this let us know what y'all think about quitting. Um, I don't know. It's kind of a fun topic, and again, something that's not really talked about. So that's all we got for you. With that, we will catch y'all next week. Thanks for tuning in.